shring. Om shring ring kling ein sao. Ing ring shring ka e la ring. Asaka hala ring. Sakala ring. Sao ein kling ring shring. Om shring ring kling ein sao. Test. Namaste. Is the sound okay? Picture okay? Well, this is a very live room, so there's going to be some echo. And I'm using the studio mic, which is very sensitive, so it picks up all the room sound. Better than being dry, don't you think? So let's wait a minute and see if some more people join. Yeah, there's foam on the mic. You bet. Don't want to get any pops. So I'm going to wait one more minute and then give a small talk. Then we can have questions. Okay, I guess nobody else is coming, at least not right now. So this is about the Alicante Retreat, which is going to be in April and May of next year. Why are we starting so early? Well, we want to have like a kickoff meeting to get your impressions, your input on what you want to experience and how you want this thing to be organized. After all, this is for you. It's not for me. So I want to know about your needs, your desires, and what you think would help you to advance in spiritual life. The main topic is going to be the four views, the Chatur Darshanam. Uh-oh. I don't know why it's coming out so big, but you've seen this before, right? You've all seen this on our channel. Let me see if I can get it the right size. No, it's still too big. Anyway, if you've been watching our channel for, more than 2 or 3 days, you must have seen this diagram because we use it all the time. And this is actually the core of our teaching. It's called Dharmasār. Sara means the essence of Dharma. And what is the essence of Dharma? It's this fourfold division of everything according to the 4 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and the transcendental state, Turiya. So everything goes according to these 4 states. Philosophy, yoga, the divisions of society and work, the divisions of life, according to the Vedic teachings. And this is the root of it all. This is the context that gives the content of the Vedas its meaning. So we're starting from this fourfold division based on consciousness. And that is going to be the principal topic. That's what I want to present. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think we should present, and how do you want it to be presented? How do you want the seminar to be organized? We're going to have one house on the beach that will be for the classes and other group activities. But everything else is kind of up in the air. Do you want your own place? Do you want to have a dorm type situation? Do you want to go out for your meals? Do you want to cook your own meals? Do you want to have a group meal? Would you be willing to pay something for that to the coordinator? That's not me. That's Moritz. So we're also going to give you the contact information for Moritz. And we're going to also announce a Signal group. Signal Messenger is similar to WhatsApp, but it's much more secure and reliable. much more private also. So we can discuss anything on there. And then later on we'll open it up maybe into a Discord chat or something like that. But in the beginning, I just want to discuss with those who are the most interested in attending this event and what their views are, what your views are. So let me know in the comments, and then we'll discuss. I'm waiting. What's this? How to align life with states. Well, everybody experiences the 4 states of consciousness every single day. Can't help it. You're either waking, dreaming, in deep sleep, or in samadhi, in Turiya. There aren't any other states, only those 4. And everything else is a manifestation or a particular flavor or application of those states. Let me give you an example. In the beginning of life, we're very much attached to the body and the senses. But then after a certain age, usually in our teenage years, if we're intelligent, we start to think. Thinking is a kind of dreaming, a waking dream, like a daydream. But it goes like a conversation with yourself. You're talking to yourself. What do I think of this? So when you think, you're having a discussion with yourself, and that's basically a dream. And then, of course, there's the dreams that happen during sleep. Then, during deep sleep, dreams and the senses and the mind, the world, and all the phenomena in it disappear. So, in deep sleep, we realize our original nature, or we can realize it if we're enlightened. And this is Turiya. We are not the doer. We are not the possessor, the controller, the owner of anything. We are simply pure consciousness. And that consciousness is affected in different ways by the senses and the mind. But when we become free from senses and mind, then our true nature comes out. So the Vedic system creates 4 divisions of life, called Brahmachari, which means student life, then Grihastha, which means married life, family life, Vanaprastha, which means retired life, and Sannyas, renounced life. Generally, gurus are from the renounced class, although actually they can be in any class if they're realized. And you can attain that realization in any stage of life. And then again, there are the 4 occupational duties. Brahmana, which means a priest or monk or meditator. Kshatriya, which means a ruler or administrator or warrior. Vaishya, which means a landowner, capitalist, businessman, or like that. And Shudra, which means someone who works for others. And you can see in this life, most people are Shudras. And then there are 4 yogas. First, Karma Yoga, which Hatha Yoga is a part. Then Bhakti Yoga, devotion. Then Raja Yoga, which is meditation, which is what the Buddhist teaching is all about. And finally, Jnana Yoga, which is realization of Turiya. So the 4 orders of life, the 4 occupational divisions, the 4 types of yoga, the 4 philosophical views, darshanams, are based on the 4 states of consciousness. And this is how it applies to life. Does that answer your question? Who asked that? MMGG. Whatever that stands for. Let's see, there's another question. I'm going to continue with MMGG because it's built on the previous question. He's saying, is there need for sustainable Turiya? Well, we're in Turiya all the time because Turiya is the root source of all the other states of consciousness. Try to understand. It's like a house with 3 rooms and a hallway. To get to any of the 3 rooms, you have to go through the hallway. So Turiya is like the hallway that leads to these 3 different rooms, waking, dreaming, and sleeping consciousness. Or you could say Turiya is like the house. The house contains all the rooms. And similarly, the Turiya state contains the other 3. So we're actually all in Turiya all the time. But because we don't understand it, we don't have knowledge, vidya, the knowledge from the scriptures, or knowledge from a realized being. And because of that, we don't observe the phenomenon. We don't have a box to put it in. So this knowledge, this vidya, Veda vidya, or realized knowledge from the scriptures, is very important because it gives us the categories in which to observe our actual experience and not miss anything. So is that clear? Let's see. The unanointed one. Enlightenment is not the end of existence per se, but it's the end of conditioned consciousness, conditioned existence. What does conditioned mean? It means limited or controlled. For example, we could say that using a car or other vehicle is conditional upon having gas, or I guess now electricity. So there is conditioned consciousness, which depends on something outside itself for its qualities. And that's where the mind and senses come in. The mind and senses condition consciousness. They make us feel pleasure and pain. They give us knowledge, or if we have wrong information, ignorance. The conditioning, for example, of the ego, the sense of identity, who I am. And the unconditioned consciousness means consciousness that's based on the idea, I am consciousness. I am pure awareness. I am Turiya. So these four states of consciousness are all very important. Only Turiya is unconditioned. All the rest are conditioned, which means limited. So, the motivation to attain self-realization is that we don't realize these things. We're confused. And as a result, we suffer. Birth is suffering. Childhood or infancy is suffering. Childhood, adolescence is suffering. Adulthood is suffering. Old age is definitely suffering. And then there's death. All these states, these changes in the body, involve different kinds of suffering. Then we try to cover over that suffering with different kinds of enjoyment, sense pleasures, and like that. But all that does is condition us to something temporary that will be lost. All of our family affairs and love affairs, all of our career and financial dealings, all of our possessions, all of our relationships in any sphere, all this will be lost because it's based on conditioned consciousness. Only that which is based on unconditioned consciousness cannot be lost. And that's Turiya again. So all these ideas of I am the body, I am the son of so-and-so, I am the father of so-and-so, or I am the CEO of this new startup company, XYZ, or I am a Republican, a Democrat, or whatever. I am a Hindu, a Christian, a Muslim, a Jain, or whatever. These are all temporary. These will all be lost at the time of death, if not before. We all know, for example, people that change their religion or change their philosophy or other beliefs or views. That means those views are conditioned because they have a beginning and an end. They can change. If the conditions change, if the environment changes, if our relationships change, then our views and our activities, our sense of self, who we are, can also change. So in this way, conditioned consciousness and the views based upon it are sources of suffering. Yes, they can also give a little pleasure, but in any case, it's temporary. So it's not really satisfactory. And those are the three attributes of the world given or explained by the Buddha. That everything is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. So these three attributes apply to everything except Turiya. And the whole path of yoga is simply about attaining Turiya, realizing Turiya, and letting that become our identification, not these other temporary things. Then MM goes on, if one accepts what is, then one no longer suffers, right? Yes and no. Even the most self-realized person still has a body. In rare cases, when one becomes realized, he leaves the body. He's gone. But any kind of self-realization means there is no longer mental suffering because there is no longer any ignorance or conditioned consciousness. Conditioned consciousness is the same as ignorance because our sense of identity is wrong. Or it's rather temporary and conditioned. So there's three kinds of karma. Sanchari karma, which means the total of all types of karma. Prarabdha karma, which means ripened karma, the karma that is applicable to this lifetime, which is going to manifest in this lifetime. And then there's Vishesha karma, which applies to future lives. It's not going to manifest, it's not ripe in this life. So, when one attains enlightenment, the Sanchari karma and the Vishesha karma are annihilated. But the Prarabdha karma still remains. Why? So that the enlightened soul, the self-realized being, can teach others, can share his enlightenment. Otherwise, how would people learn? How would people approach enlightenment without a teacher, without scriptures, without some kind of instructions? So even the enlightened beings have to stick around. Have to stick around and help others. That is their duty. So until that prarabdha karma is exhausted, completely finished, then the body is still there. And because the body experiences different kinds of pleasure and displeasure, then one has to tolerate that. But because he knows now who he really is, that he is pure consciousness, there's no more mental suffering. All that goes away. So does the concept of material conditioned identity go away. One no longer thinks of himself in terms of the categories of material, of consciousness. So, there is suffering after enlightenment, but we know that when this body is finished, that's the end. And one category of suffering, mental suffering, goes away completely. So there's some more questions. Aditya, all of the yogas are important because they come in a certain order. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, and jnana yoga. What happens is when you do karma yoga, you are accumulating punya, means good karma or pious results of your past activities. So when you get enough punya, automatically love of God will develop spontaneously. You cannot force it. You cannot imitate. You can't fake it till you make it. That's karma yoga. Behaving in a pious way, following the rules and regulations of scriptures, going to temples, performing sacrifice, doing japa, doing different kinds of puja and studying scriptures, accepting a guru, giving in charity, doing other kinds of beneficial welfare work for the society. That's all part of karma yoga. And when one accumulates sufficient pious credits, punya, then one enters bhakti. Because it cannot be done by the individual. To attain love of God is a blessing from God. It's a spontaneous thing. We cannot do it, but it happens when we become qualified. So performance of sadhana, according to the rules of karma yoga, is a necessary foundation. If you want to build a big high building, the Burj Khalifa or whatever, you have to dig a very deep foundation. The stronger you make the foundation, the higher the building can rise. Like a tree. A tree's root system is at least as big as the branches and leaves that you see above ground. Otherwise, any kind of breeze would just blow the tree down. It needs a strong root system to survive. And so our yoga practice needs the foundation of karma yoga and build upon that to qualify for bhakti yoga. It's not something you can get by reading books or getting initiations or joining a temple or a group or accepting a teaching mentally or intellectually. Those are all part of karma yoga. Doing hatha yoga, doing economic development, taking care of family duties, working according to ethical principles, not cheating, not lying, not stealing. These are all part of karma yoga. If you do this consistently for a long time, and I mean lifetimes, you can qualify for bhakti yoga, and this is a blessing from God. One of the greatest blessings. Love cannot be forced. It has to arise spontaneously. So that means, another way to put it, structurally, when the Brahma Granthi in the solar plexus is penetrated by the Kundalini, then the attachment to the body goes away and a heart opens up and love manifests spontaneously. That's bhakti. Not only love of God, but love of all creatures and compassion. So, then when bhakti matures, the Vishnu Granthi in the heart is penetrated by Kundalini. And then there's no more attachment to typical emotions, but only transcendental emotions, bhava, bhakti bhava. And at this point, ecstatic symptoms manifest, one becomes blissed out, and meditation, Raja Yoga, arises spontaneously. So this is another blessing. Cannot be imitated. I'm always amused by people who say, teach me meditation. As if meditation could be taught. We can talk about meditation till we're blue in the face, but we cannot attain actual meditation or samadhi until the heart is cleansed by performance of karma and bhakti yoga. Again, it's the foundation thing. So when one becomes qualified, then meditation arises spontaneously as a blessing. And when meditation matures, then self-realization happens. The Rudra Granthi in the third eye is penetrated by the Kundalini, and she attains union with Shiva in the Sahasrara chakra. This is self-realization. This is enlightenment. This is moksha. It's the most wonderful thing. Okay. Oh, more questions. Let's see. Yeah, pain is necessary, but suffering is optional. It's an attitude. It's a judgment. Is there equivalent of karma yoga in the Buddhist teaching? You bet there is. Oh boy, there's tons of things that relate to karma yoga in the Buddhist teaching. Giving charity, for example. And learning the scriptures. Doing different kinds of ceremonies and pujas. Reciting the sutras. And in Mahayana Buddhism, there's all kinds of different worship of different deities. In Tantra, Mahayana Tantra. So, yes, there's karma yoga in Buddhist teaching, and there's also bhakti in the form of metta, practice of blessing others and loving others through service. Okay. Ratna, yes, Guru is within because God is within. And God is the original Guru. Just like we discussed in the series on Drishya Viveka, the seer and the seen, that the mind, the body, and the senses are not conscious. They are inert. But the consciousness, the real consciousness, is reflected in them, just like the sun or moon is reflected in the puddles of water after a rain. So they appear to have consciousness, but they don't really. So it's the same with Guru. The external Guru, the friend, they put it in Buddha's terminology, is just a reflection of the inner Guru, which again is identified with Turiya. So external Guru simply points to the inner Guru and repeats whatever inner Guru is teaching, whatever inner Guru is saying, or the directions coming from inner Guru. Realized person can hear inner Guru. He has become the inner Guru. And the conditioned personality is finished. It's gone. It's purified out of existence. So yes, inner Guru is there. But in our conditioned state, we can't hear him. We can't hear because we're listening to the mind, the senses, the body. And we think these are real because they reflect our consciousness. But without our consciousness, participation of our consciousness, mind, body, and senses are inert. They're just mechanical machines. Without the life energy, they become useless, dead. So, inner Guru is there, but to hear inner Guru is not a trivial matter. It requires a lot of study and practice and purification. All those yogas have a reason. They have a purpose. They exist to bring us into communication with the inner Guru. But before we can hear inner Guru, then we need outer Guru, the friend, the association. That's why we do these videos. That's why we do the podcasts. That's why we do these live sharing events. See, I went through, my God, 70 years of sadhana. And I just completed it recently, before I got the blessing from Arunachala Shiva that, okay, you're done. You're done. Now it's time for you to go out in the world and share. And You know, it's very comfortable to sit at home and do sadhana and live a life of solitude. It's very nice, actually. But one comes to the point where his duty becomes to share. And that is the stage of perfection. So we're going out now. We're going to leave India soon and probably spend the winter in Sri Lanka and then come to Europe in the spring. And the first thing we're going to do is have this retreat where you can get direct, sitting in the same room, association with a realized soul. Can you hear that? That's one of those funeral bands. Somebody died and now they're coming to the temple across the street and playing the drums and nagaswaram, like a big Shanai oboe type thing. This is why I love India. No place else, especially South India. So let's see comments. Is there a difference between consciousness and awareness? Yes. Consciousness has an object. Awareness does not. In consciousness, and that includes Turiya, there's a duality between the subject and the object, between the seer and the seen. Drik, drishya, vivekaha. The seer, drik, and the seen, drishya. Vivekaha means discrimination. So being able to discriminate between the seer and the seen is one of the most important and fundamental teachings in yoga. So when one rises to self-realization and goes into deep meditation and samadhi, one reaches the state of awareness where there is no object. Oh, I should mention before I go into that, that in Turiya, the object is the other three states of consciousness. That's what I meant when I said we're in Turiya all the time. Because whether we're in waking, dreaming, or deep sleep, Turiya is awake and aware all the time and viewing those states of consciousness, those conditioned states. But Turiya is unconditioned. So when the body and mind go away, only Turiya is left without an object. That's awareness. In Turiya, one is only aware of being aware. One is aware of one's awareness and one's existence. That's all. There are no other objects. There is no duality. That's what it means, non-duality, advaita. Advaita, not two. There's no subject-object duality. It's not two. But you can't say it's one either. Because if there's no other object, how are you going to count? 0, 1, 2, huh? But if there's nothing to see, no object, then you can't count. Advaita, not two, but it's not one either, or any other number. So yes, there is a difference between consciousness and awareness, and it's very technical and esoteric, but it can be explained very simply, that it's awareness of awareness. Okay, what else we got? That's it. No more questions? Nobody has said anything about the event. Is anybody planning to attend? Ratna says, so is it because we can comprehend the stuff or world around us, we take it to be real? Like a pigeon may not be able to comprehend how a cube looks like, but it doesn't make it false. It exists for us. And does the same apply to humans? Well, the idea of a cube or any other figure or form belongs to language. It's a concept. Animals don't have language, or they have very primitive forms of language that don't include abstract concepts like cube or triangle or whatever. They simply have their bodily desires and the urge to fulfill them. So to a pigeon, you put a cube out there, it's just another thing. And if it's not food, he has no interest in it. It might be good to hop up on it and look around and see if he can find something to eat. But that's it. It's a perch. It's not a cube. And yes, it applies to humans because language and concepts are uniquely human. So when we see something, the first thing we do is try to categorize it, classify it, name it, and figure out its relations to everything else. So, MMGG, whoever that is, wants to share more details, exact dates. Exact dates from beginning of April to the end of May. And whoever shows up, that's who attends. Structure of a day. Well, that's what I want to discuss. I guess it's going to take a lot more discussion before we get to that point. But I mean, I think there should be like meditation early in the morning, then a class, breakfast is in there somewhere, and maybe then some karma yoga, lunch, free time, unstructured time, can do whatever we want, and then maybe another meditation or class in the evening. Real simple, real basic. And you can come for any length of time. Whoever shows up and however long they can stay, that's going to be their retreat. You get to design a lot of your own experience. I'm not going to create a big structure, just like I'm not into creating any kind of organization. It's all spontaneous. It's up to you. So, oh, there's more questions. Let's see. Avindus, you mention deities sometimes, but the deities are man-made fabrications. As I understand it, the only reality is the self. Have I understood it correctly? Is there an advantage in thinking in terms of fabricated entities? I mean no disrespect, I'm just trying to understand. Yes. In the stage of bhakti and even karma yoga, we want to give God a face, a form, an identity. And this isn't necessarily a projection or fabrication, Because actually, God is beyond understanding, transcendent, inexplicable, non-conceptual, beyond the beyond. So how can we relate to some entity that we can't understand? Well, we have to project. It's just like when you meet a self-realized soul. You project your own idea of who that person is. You can't help it because you don't know what's inside. Or any person, especially someone who's self-realized. They're in another state of consciousness. They're beyond your concepts, beyond your ideas. Or there would be no need for a guru. So, when you approach a guru, you're speculating. Well, what does he think about me? What do I think about him? What kind of person is he? What's he going to do? What's he going to say? It's all bullshit. But because we still have an ego, we think everybody still has an ego. Because we still have desires, we think even the guru has desires. Well, the guru's only desire is to help you. Sometimes he has to be tough. He has to discipline you. And that's the problem with people today. See, they want to jump up to the Raja Yoga platform and say, oh, it's all one. It's all one. There's really no God. Well, if there's no God, how did this universe come into existence? If there's no God, who created you? If there's no God, why is the law of karma inviolate? Who determines the half-life of an isotope of uranium? See? Some being does that. But that being is beyond our conception. But to have a relationship, including a service relationship with that entity, we have to project a human face, a human form on it. Okay, so the Vedas, the scriptures, use this device of saying the weather is controlled by Indra. The getting all dyslexic here. The earth is a living being, a goddess. The sun is a living being, Surya, and so on. So many demigods, 33 million demigods. Each one controls a certain aspect of nature. They are the embodiment of the universal laws, the scientific laws, if that's what you like to call them, that make the universe run, that keep it running. No complex machine can exist unless it is created, first of all, designed, built, and maintained. You have to maintain your car or it'll break down. Somebody designed that car. Somebody built that car. Somebody more skilled than you. So we have to accept that there are gods and goddesses, each with a specific function, and they're all like the hands and fingers and other limbs of the one God, Brahman. But because Brahman is inexplicable and transcends all understanding, we have to give them names and forms. And they may be fictional, but on a certain level of reality, they're absolutely real. But they're temporary. They only exist as long as the universe exists, as long as human beings exist. then they disappear when the universe disappears, if not sooner. At the pralaya, or the destruction at the end of the day of Brahma, all the worlds and all the demigods are destroyed. Only the pure creation and the unconditioned deities remain. And then they create again in the beginning of Brahma's next day. But at the universal dissolution, at the end of the creation, all of them disappear and are reabsorbed into Brahman, which is their original source. So, that could be a whole series in itself. Yeah, and the advantage of thinking in these terms is that now we can have a relationship. You can't have a relationship with Brahman. If you realize Brahman, you become Brahman. You are reabsorbed into Brahman. That's the end of this I, this individual being. And that's great because it's also the end of suffering. But up to that point, you need to have a way to communicate both ways. And that requires the existence of a personality, a form, an identity, a mind, a language, a system of knowledge and values. So therefore we create gods more or less in our own image, but with greater powers. And then we explain things in that way, so that not only sadhus, but less intelligent people can also understand a little bit about God. So let's see, next question. We're almost done. Is Brahman the non-self of Buddhism? And Aditya says yes, it sure is. Because Brahman has no ego, no form, no identity, no mind, no activities. There can't be any activities. There can't even be consciousness in Brahman because there's no object. There's only pure awareness. Okay. Avindus says, I want to find a way to relate to God, but as a Westerner, I find it difficult to do it through deities. It feels like I'm knowingly lying to myself. You have any advice for that? Yes. What you're doing is called jumping up. We're jumping over. It's just like trying to jump up to the top step of a ladder without going step by step up the rungs. We've seen it 1,000 times, 10,000 times, that people try to jump up. It usually has something to do with drugs, or if not, with misunderstanding the philosophy, especially the Advaita philosophy. If you try artificially, intellectually, to realize Advaita without the foundation of karma and bhakti, you will fall down. Maybe you can hold the idea intellectually for some time, but then as soon as you become distracted, you'll forget. And you become an ordinary person again, like a pashu, an animal chasing after desires. It's pathetic. I see it here in Tiruvannamalai all the time. People come from Europe and America, and they don't want to do any service, they don't want to do any sadhana. They just want to say, oh, it's all one, yes, yes. Happens to Indians too. Because they have a poor understanding of the path. They don't realize that karma and bhakti are important precursors. So they wind up performing karma bhakti anyway. But instead of loving God and serving God, they serve something mundane. They love some mundane person. They become attached to their possessions, to their money, to their career. They love their wives and girlfriends and family and, like that. Or they love themselves. They become solipsistic. And they say, well, I'm the most important person. I'm the number one. And like that. We see this a lot in the teachers who are unrealized. They want the power and prestige and recognition that comes along with being a guru. But they haven't done the sadhana. They haven't done their homework. And so as soon as some pretty chick walks by, they're like right on her tail, I've seen it 100 times if I've seen it once. So, what is necessary is to go back and do your homework. Go back and become qualified. And then the authentic realization will be given to you. It's not something you adopt as a false ego or as a fashion. See, it's not something you can do. It's something you can desire, certainly. But that can easily morph into sadhu ego, what I call sadhu ego. Oh, I'm on the path, I'm going to attain enlightenment. Oh, just see how advanced I am. Whoa. That person is due for a fall. It can happen in an instant. As soon as they accept ordinary, mundane desires and activities again, they're finished. My Adi Guru used to call this blooping. He said when they fall down into the material pool, it makes a sound like bloop. So we see this again and again. There is no danger in doing karma yoga and bhakti yoga. There is a danger in prematurely thinking one is more qualified than one really is. Unless you can show the history that you have been through these things in structured environments. Like, I traveled all over the world and I studied with native teachers in all the important traditions, beginning with the Native American tradition, and then the Vaishnava tradition, the Buddhist tradition, Zen, Chinese yoga, and so on. And finally, the Advaita tradition and the Shakta tradition here in South India. And in each one of those, I had formal initiation from a guru. And it's all a matter of record. You can go back and check it up. And you can see how I passed all those tests. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm trying to say there is an example, there is a standard. And to simply declare yourself enlightened without having gone through those steps is bogus. Nobody's going to accept that if they have any intelligence. So, but this is going on. There's cheating going on, endemic in the world today, in the spiritual world. The world of spirituality, or I should say religion. Because actually, to claim to be enlightened, or to claim to be a guru without the realization is a form of cheating. And religion is a cheating business, as opposed to real, authentic spirituality. An enlightened person is incapable of cheating, incapable of lying, incapable of harm. So, for example, I could never force anybody to do anything. It's just not in my nature. One time, I'll never forget this. This was so funny. I was in a meeting with a bunch of bigwigs in my Adi Guru's organization, ISKCON. and I was supposed to take notes, and they were going to discuss something kind of confidential, you know. And so some of them were looking at me and saying, can we trust this guy, you know? He's going to hear all this stuff and take notes about it and then publish it, whatever. And I'll never forget this. One of the big gurus who had actually had known me for a long time, since 1967, he said, don't worry about him. He's harmless. It was one of the biggest compliments I ever got from anybody, although he didn't mean it that way. So I'm harmless. I'm not going to do anything to you. But I'm going to open up a space of meaning, where you can understand these things properly and practice them correctly. All right, one more question. Was Ramana Maharishi's philosophy solipsism? No, not at all. You're probably misinterpreting the word self. That when you realize the self, you become the self, with a capital S. Because there really is nothing else but the self. But in language, it comes out sounding like solipsism or narcissism, but it's not. And the difference is a solipsistic or narcissistic person cannot love. They're incapable of love. They're incapable of seeing if they've made a mistake or apologizing or being sorry or being regretful. You know? I mean, I made so many mistakes in my life. You know, I could spend a whole video series of 100 videos just talking about all this stuff I screwed up in my life. But because I had the connection with God through my gurus, it was always corrected. And indeed became a cause of further advancement, further spiritual enlightenment by their grace. So, what's this? Yeah, actually I didn't realize the significance until much later when I was reading one of Buddha's sutras. And he said, one must become harmless. Real love means you never hurt anyone or anything. So, yes, being harmless is one of the greatest compliments, being called harmless, that you can give someone. And if they actually embody that, then that is a wonderful, wonderful quality. That means they're very spiritually advanced. So, with that, we're over an hour now. So, with that, I'm going to close. Thank you very much. Oh, what are the next steps? Listen carefully. If you want to attend the event in April, send me an email or contact me on Signal Messenger. And let's discuss all these questions. I'm going to form a group on Signal of the people who want to attend the group so that we can work on the structure and the activities, how it's going to be organized and so on. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. If you want to come to Alicante in April and May for any amount of time, it could be one day or it could be the whole 2 months. And, you know, things are still fluid. and will probably change. So that's why we're starting now, to get an idea of how we're going to do things, how we're going to arrange everything. I don't want to overwork Moritz. He's very kindly volunteered to host and organize the program and promote it, especially in Germany. But I don't want to place too much of a burden or too much pressure on him. So that means everybody has to cooperate. And I don't want to be like a dictator and say it's going to be like this and like that. That's why we want your input. We need your input so that nobody comes there and then feels like we're being dictatorial or oppressive, or making decisions that don't take them into account. Oh, yeah. One more thing in the seminar. During the unstructured time, and my time's going to be structured, because I'm going to have individual interviews with everybody. And basically that's my time to listen to you. So just like in a Zen monastery, all the monks every day go to visit the master. And sometimes they talk, and sometimes they just sit in silence. And that way, excuse me, the master is able to keep up with what's going on with all the students. So I want to do something similar. I may give a small class in the morning, and that's when I get to speak. But later on in the day, you get to come and see me. We'll just sit together, and anything that's on your mind is fair game for discussion. So I look forward to meeting you all. I'm so glad that you could come and see this presentation and enter into discussion, ask your questions. I'm very happy with how it turned out. We're going to do another one on Sunday, but it's going to be later in the day, or Saturday. I'm not sure yet. Saturday or Sunday, we're going to do another live stream so that people in the US can also attend. But this one, I wanted to aim specifically at people in Europe, because they're probably going to be the ones who come in April. So, thank you again. Aum Tat Sat. Aum Shakti Aum.